This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vasugi and Mikey Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mikey Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vasugi, and we are so thrilled to be back with you for another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about something that we have received so many questions about, because a lot of us who are high achievers have a lot of ambition. So where's the balance between that ambition and remaining neutral and letting good things happen? So Araj, that's where I want to start today. And I know you have a lot of insights on this topic. So what's at the top of your mind?
A lot's kind of going through my mind. They work in harmony with each other when we're not attached. The problem is most people are so attached to the how, and so they never let go. I don't think people lack ambition for most people. I don't think like our followers, the people who follow us, lack ambition. And I think what they lack is trust. And what you'll see is people are not seeing the results fast enough, and then they start over. They start thinking, I've got to force, or I got to do something different, or there's something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not trusting the process. I'm always talking about compounding interest. With a lot of our group coaching this week, we talked a lot about it. I said, we understand compounding interest with money. Like if we have an investment account and we're constantly putting money in, it's going to compound. And we can trust that, right? But with our principles and processes, we're not understanding the compounding interest because, exponential and explosive growth is very deceptive. I always compare it to the bamboo tree. The bamboo tree gets planted and for years nothing happens, and then it just shoots all the way up within days, right? But we're not trusting the process, and people are stopping. So now, is it the ambition? I don't think so. It's more about the attachment and the relationship, and they're always constantly shifting what they're doing, so they never build consistency. This is what we have to understand. It's one of my favorite quotes from Neville. He says, you are ready the minute you enter the thought. Feel its reality and accept the state as fact, and it will come. See, that's what we have to do. We have to accept that state as fact, feel that reality, so we radically accept the idea, and the outcome's already done. Now, when it's going to happen, it's happening in this present moment. Your future depends on what you do in the present moment, and that means accepting the idea. So what are most people doing? They're in suffering. Why? Because they're tying their identity to the outside result. And when you do that, you're going to have an emotional reaction to everything that is happening in your outside world, everything somebody says to you. But I love what Warren Buffett says. He says, true power is sitting back and observing things with logic. He's talking about using your higher faculty of logic and understanding to be neutral. That's using your perception. He says true power is restraint. If anything controls you, that means everything controls you. Now, we got to understand that. Now, he didn't say the last part. I said the last part, but that's what we have to understand. And there's a lot of people who have great goals. There's people who have mediocre goals. You have people with low goals. It's all over the board. Now, an ambitious person has really big goals. See, if we don't have big goals, there's no reason to build ourselves. That's why the goal is more instead of from the ego, oh, I'm setting a big goal. No, the goal is building us to where we want to go. Like I always say, I think financial freedom is the worthiest goal anybody can create. Why? Because it builds them. But in order to create financial freedom, you have to let go, number one. To create anything, you attract it when you let it go. You push it away afterwards if you're forcing, right? And financial independence, you could put any goal here, it demands you to add more value. If you want more love in your life, you got to give love. So anything you have to add value to, that's the true key to success. But using my example of financial freedom, you have to love the art of earning money. You have to love the game because it's a game, it's a scoreboard. And most people are using it as a very unauthentic understanding. So they're chasing it. And then it becomes miserable. Then you'll see people who are not letting, to answer your question, they're attached to something. So what are they always doing? They're in a state of suffering. What is suffering? A low vibration. Everything in the universe is vibration. The universe is here to serve us, but the universe doesn't give a shit what we're doing. It really doesn't. It goes off of vibration. It's impersonal. Like we've been given the power of choice. And I think Jeff Bezos says it the best. I learned this from him more than anybody. He said, your potential doesn't take hard work. And he's right. He said, but the choices that define you are what takes the hard work. And we're in control of those choices. And that's what, when we're making the right choices and we're accepting and rejecting ideas from our future self, now we're not attached to anything. It's very simple. It's like somebody says something to you, no, I'm not going to accept that. Like that's not in harmony with me. But what's happening, people are forgetting about their want throughout the day. You would never let the outside control you if you were locked in on your want. And our conscious mind can only hold one idea at the same time. So if I'm locked in on my want and make it a magnificent obsession, that's all I'm going to start thinking about. That's the ideas that come. That's what I'm going to attract to me. But if I'm locked in on why this deal didn't happen or what that person said, then I'm completely attached. But what is attachment? It's a fear. And most people are treating symptoms, not the cause. What is the cause? Whatever that fear is, we've got to uncover it because that's our greatest obstacle, but it's also our greatest opportunity to break through.
I absolutely love how you laid this out so far. I knew you were going to bring up future self, and I'm so glad that you did because I want to talk about the difference between push and pull. I think that there's so many ideas that have been accepted in conflicting ways because they're misunderstood. And so someone might think like, oh, I have to grind really hard to get to my goal. And while grinding or working hard might be something that you value, it doesn't have to be in the same sense of forcing something or pushing something away. You can grind or love to work hard or value hard work and still work from your future self and pull your goals to you instead of pushing them away as you're trying to force things or looking at the outside results and trying to make something happen. Will you talk about the difference there and how some of these ideas that have been accepted might be causing confliction when they're just misunderstood?
When you said grind, that's how I used to live. I mean, I can relate to that. I would grind away. I actually don't think grinding is a bad thing.
I don't either. Yeah.
I think it creates great work habits. It creates a great work ethic, and it starts building your character of how to work, right?
I do think it gets a negative connotation instead of a positive one, like you just laid out.
If we're grinding, we want to grind being detached. You can grind being detached, where you're just obsessed with something. Like deliberate practice would be a form of grinding in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. But grinding being attached, that's what you're talking about. That's what most people are doing. They think I got to force everything. And so they shut off their genius and their subconscious just completely shut off. And you're doing everything based on a fear and of attachment. So the reason I want people to understand there's two currencies that are the most important currencies we have. Number one is time, how we're using our time. Like you and I are the youngest we're ever going to be today. Like right now, we're the youngest we're ever going to be.
Yeah.
There's too many people not seizing the day. We did an episode on plan of attack. We only get this day, but we're building our identity in what our actions are today and what our thoughts are today. And too many people think, I'll let it go. And they'll say, tomorrow I'll do it. So they're letting go of today. Then tomorrow becomes next week. Then next week becomes next month. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is really damaging themselves. So if you're going to build your grit, that is healthy. That's where you have a purpose and you're willing to work on it day in, day out, day in, day out, do the monotonous until it becomes automatized.
Mhm.
But to really create a world-class life, you've got to have world-class goals. You've got to have a goal that really inspires you. The greatest danger lies in not setting our goals high and falling short, but setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. Michelangelo says that. There's nothing more accurate than that. But most people are looking at short-term wants instead of what they want the most. The reason we pick big goals is what we want the most, not what's going to get our needs satisfied. Because short-term gains equal long-term pains. You're going to regret it. So the more we start letting go, the more you're going to get to where you want. What happens in letting go? It's when you're in action. When you're in action, you're not mechanical. Think about, Mike, think about you. Think about an action you took yesterday. Were you in your head or were you in your heart?
Total flow, spirit, heart.
And then look at fear. When we're in action, we don't have fear.
Yeah.
We may not know the thing, but once we get in action, you get in the spirit, your body takes over, and boom, whatever you're doing. So when you're talking about ambition and letting go is the art of a world-class life. It's an art of freedom. But the person who lets go has to have a considerable amount of trust and a considerable amount of understanding that the outcome is done. Like people will ask me all the time, when you set a goal, what happens for you? I said, it's done. I never think of anything in opposition to that goal. Now, I don't know when it's going to happen. I've never known when it's going to happen. But I never change the date of when I commit to the goal until that date is passed. But I'm never down about it and say, oh, God, it didn't happen. All I tell myself is I haven't been wired yet. I need more repetition in my rewiring.
Yeah.
See, we have to get really great and real. When I say great, I mean, this has got to be our dominant emotional state of feeling what we would feel had we already experienced that. Because that's what we're doing when we're putting obstacles in our mind. Think about it. When somebody says, well, what if it doesn't happen? Or what if this? All you did was assume that feeling already. You accepted that idea automatically. And so letting go is accepting the opposite. But at the end of the day, we're in control of our beliefs. Like you cannot control my belief about me.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot control. I can help you with your belief. I can encourage and I can show you your wins that will be like, oh, I forgot about that, But at the end of the day, we are in control of our beliefs and we have this inner power that we access when we let go. When we let go, we tap into our greatest version of ourselves. See, everyone listening to this, your greatest self hasn't even come out yet. It is coming if you let go. There's another person inside of you that's dying to come out. That's why you're listening to our podcast. And that person is going to come out more and more, and you're going to get more and more confidence in your inner power to just let. And when you let, that's when the magic happens.
So good. Raj, so many high achievers like to be in control. And so there's this tendency to want to hold on really tightly to control, or the idea of letting go feels like losing control. Can you explain why that's not the case and why letting go doesn't mean losing control?
Well, I always say high achievers, there's a difference between high achievers and world-class achievers.
Mm-hmm.
High achievers are still super insecure. They're driven by their ego a lot. They tie their identity to their results. They're just really good at their craft. They're really good. And they're using your word ambition. They're very ambitious. So they will use that word again, grind. They will grind until they do it, right? But the world-class achiever is all about trust. It's all about faith. It's all about living their processes and committing to them over and over again. And when they don't win the day, they know physically the results may not have happened that day, but they know they planted invisible seeds that they're going to see in the future. That's the difference. Like freedom doesn't go to the high achiever. Freedom goes to the world-class achiever because the high achiever is still letting the results control them. Like being results driven, I don't think is a bad thing at all. But being attached to the result and tying your identity to it is very dangerous. It is a very dangerous game because when your results, when they're high, you really feel good about yourself. When they're low, you feel that low. So we want to be completely in temperance in the middle. We want to have the same attitude towards losing as we do winning.
Yeah.
When we have that same emotional state, it just is. That's when you're going to create massive quantum leaps. That's when you're going to create a massive jumps. And what you're doing is you're changing the game with your standard. That is a standard where I am in control. I'm not letting anything outside of me control me. So when you're talking about control, what we want to control is our emotional state. I want you to be in positive emotion. I want you to celebrate yourself. But I don't want you to think there's something wrong with you when you're losing. What's wrong, maybe you accepted the wrong ideas. What's wrong is you've accepted an idea that is in lack and limitation, and you want to course correct that. But what I do know, lack and limitation is never going to work. Chasing never works. Being attached never works. And you know that because we feel like crap when we're doing it. Like it's a low energy. We want to tap into our high energy. What gives us fuel? What gives us juice? Because to create a life of abundance, it demands us to be bold. It demands courage. It demands betting ourselves so we can unleash that potential. And the courage is following through by failing at our future self, even when we're not seeing the results and succeeding in our present self. Most people are succeeding at their present self and they say, well, I haven't gotten the big jump. Of course you haven't. Because what got you here is not going to get you there. What got somebody to 1 million is not going to get them from 1 million to 5 million to 10 million. I know that for a fact because I'm much different now from 1 million than what we've created since. Much different. I've had to do much different things. But elevating and committing to specific standard, we have to have letting go as part of our standard. And that's how you're going to transform your identity.
So let's get into the practical application on this. So let's say that someone's listening and they're thinking, you know what? I am grinding in the wrong way. I am letting the circumstances or the results control me. I have not let go at all. I am completely attached and base my value on the results that I'm getting or goals that I'm achieving or not achieving. What would you tell them to do process-wise or application-wise to change that?
Well, number one, you're going to understand the goal is going to demand courage. And every goal I set tells me that I've got to upgrade my courage muscle. Every single goal. I have to upgrade my courage. So we got to understand that, number one. Number two, when you're attached to something, I want you to ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And I know the ego is going to come in. I'm not afraid of anything. Trust me, you are. There's an underlying fear. It could be fear of safety. You're connecting your safety and your comfort to your bank account. So we've got to identify what that is because freedom is not your bank account. Freedom is an inside game. And once you have it inside, you'll never lose it. So we have to identify what that fear is. And most people are not letting it because the ego comes in and says, no, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid. You want to uncover, I didn't say you were afraid of anything, but what fear is dominating you? There's an idea that's dominating coming from lack. So we want to identify and get to that point. When did that idea start? Like it could have been somebody else said something to you and then you accepted it. And so we want to identify that. Then when you notice you're attached, you're in low energy. So just observe your energy. And when you're in low energy, just take a 5-minute break. Just completely let go. I've said this on so many episodes. There's two things that really are important. I mean, I say a lot of things that are important, but there's two that I'm thinking right now. Is number one, we have to be a master at letting go. So we have to understand when we're in that, we don't run away from that attachment. We take a break. And number two is we have to trust. Understand your want comes from the essence of who you are. You're meant to fulfill it. But once we identify that fear, then we're going to be able to say, okay, now I get to work on this. And it's not I have to, because you don't have to do anything. I get to work on it. And when you it changes the game. Yeah. It changes the game.
Absolutely. All right, Araj, let's get into an action step for today.
Well, to me, the action step is not lying to yourself.
Ooh.
You know, Mike, you remember
I
few
know
months
exactly what
ago?
you're going to say. Yeah.
A few months ago, I called Mikey. I said, "Where do you think we're lying to ourselves?" And she's like, her first response is nowhere. I said, "No, think about it. Everybody lies to themselves at
Okay,
some
let
point."
me explain because lie is such a like triggering word, I feel like, because if you're someone who has like really strong integrity, you think I would never lie. Like that's such an offensive word. So in my mind, I was like, I'm not lying to myself anywhere, but okay, continue as to what you meant.
Anyway, I called bullshit on her. I said, that's exactly what I said to her too. And I said,
Yeah.
we all want to consistently identify where we're lying to ourselves. And it uncovered such a magical opportunity for us. So my action step is observe from a neutral place, not from a hard place, not from shaming, but is there any area right now towards your goals that you're lying to yourself? Are you saying I'm doing the work, but really talking about the work? Or are you doing that deep personal transformation? Because daily personal transformation is what's going to create and achieve your goal and create world-class results. So you know if you're doing it 1 day a week, 2 day a week, if you're more gathering information, not working the ideas, we've got to stop talking and start doing.
Mm-hmm.
That influences us more than anything else because we learn more in the doing. So my action step is identify if and where you're lying to yourself and correct it because there's a huge opportunity there.
And will you just add to that it may be unintentional too? It like
Always
it may not be
unintentional.
blatant or
No,
obvious at
it's
first.
always unintentional because we're afraid to feel
Yeah.
because we're turning it into. Then I have to admit that I'm losing in this area. You're not losing. You're actually uncovering a big win because then you get to work on it. Because I always say our greatest lies can turn into our greatest strengths. Our greatest insecurities will turn into our greatest strengths if we identify them. If we don't identify them, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, this is a good episode. Thank you so much, Araj, and thanks to all of you. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and review. Share this with your friends and family. And hey, I also want to invite you because we are doing our very first public event in Phoenix, Arizona in November. It's called Transform. If you're interested in attending, we would love to have you. Space is very limited, but go to vosscoachingco.com for all the details, and we'd love to see you there and meet you in person. All right, thanks, Araj, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the 7-Figure Standard Podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mikey and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachingco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.